Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Automated Advantage. This week, we have an interesting topic on our casual podcast, which is focused on business leaders and sharing knowledge and lessons learned from other leaders in the industry. This week, we have Burke Franklin from Business Power Tools, who's got some really funny stories and a fresh perspective on how he got into business and what he's doing to help close a gap. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Burke. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. And if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business, we'll get going.
Thanks, Craig. Great to meet you. My business is called businesspowertools.com. It's an online platform loaded with done-for-you software-driven templates. My main product is called Biz Plan Builder. I invented that some 30-something years ago to help entrepreneurs make sense of their business to investors. And it's just evolved and grown since then. It's got a financial model in it that does all the math for you. So you can show them how this business makes money, what the costs are, what the profit is, what the valuation is. You can even go show them online and walk through and change the variables. And they can, I've done that with several clients, many clients, in fact, where we change the variables according to what the investors think. And you can tweak the model to something they'll believe. That's really the most important thing. They need to see a financial model to believe. But beyond that, the business plan, I've got an employee handbook that's useful in all 50 states. It's got more than 200 different policies in it, which shows you how crazy our world is. But hey, which policy can you live without? You got to have them all there. And it really helps you, be able to answer all the questions for employees about how we do things around here. And it sets the precedent. So in case somebody does something bad, you've got something to point to and say, hey, and if they sue you, which is really tragic or a bummer, I'm trying to help people really build a business around a useful product or service that makes our world a better place. So coming from there, I want to help you turn whatever you're doing, this problem you're solving, into a successful business. And along with that is I need to prevent people from screwing it up along the way. So we've got both ends of the spectrum, I think, covered in the business plan. It's as easy as it's ever going to be to put together a plan that makes sense to investors. And people sometimes don't like to call it a plan, but a roadmap, a blueprint, whatever you want to call it. But the investors need something to believe, and they do read them, because imagine if you're going to invest $50,000, $100,000, $500,000, millions of dollars, you're going to want to know what they want to know. In fact, one angel put it this way, says, I want to know what the entrepreneur knows, because oftentimes these guys know more about your industry than you do. And they want to know what you know, and they want to know, do you know what the risks are? Are you revealing the risks? Because investors, while they really want to make a lot of money, they're first worried about losing the money they put in. So they want to be sure that you're going to do the right thing. I'll get back to you.
No, that's a fair comment. And I think that, so I'm assuming that you've been doing this for a while and you saw a hole in the market. People came to you and said, hey, you've obviously done this well, or somehow you saw something and said, there's something that I should jump into. What was the catalyst?
Well, I did come by it honestly. I'll say that. I was working in Silicon Valley as pretty much a freelancer at this point, and a friend of mine called me up, and he had a deal going with Apple, and he had an engineering product that Apple wanted to buy and use. And at the time, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, had done a study of 26,000 businesses that failed, and they found that 65% of them, that's 2/3 of them, had no business plan. And so Apple wanted to see his business plan, because they needed to be sure that his business was going to succeed and thrive, and he'd continue developing and supporting the product. And so he called me up, and now I have some studied in electrical engineering at the University of California. I worked for Texas Instruments for a couple of years, so I understood technology. From there, I got a job at the Sharper Image Catalog, which back in the day was a kind of a guy gadget catalog. I was the electronics buyer. And then they moved me over to the catalog department because they liked how I explained the product to people so they would buy it. And when I was writing copy for the catalog, I discovered a word processor in Silicon Valley. And so from those, I understood the technology, I understood catalogs and direct response marketing. And then I was selling word processors in Silicon Valley to enterprises. So that was kind of the third leg under the stool that gave me really the trifecta of what it would take to put together this plan for my friend to pitch Apple. And so that's what it had to go. It had to go. They had to see it, and we couldn't go and pitch with it or explain it. It just had to speak on its own. Long story short, we got the deal. And over the next year, I was thinking, well, I can help people with business plans. And so they had some great ideas, medical products, all kinds of inventions, and they were looking for venture capital for them. And some of them, they made no sense. The plan was missing something. The financial model needed surgery. The client themselves needed some coaching on how they could actually pitch this thing. And it did really well. And about a year into this, I thought, I can't help enough people fast enough. And at the same time, I always wanted to have an invention of my own. Like, I've got to invent something and sell it and get rich like everybody else is doing, especially in Silicon Valley. And so I thought, why don't I just take all this content I've created for these clients and put together and consolidate it all into some kind of master plan that I could use over and over again. And in the process of doing that, I was like, hold it, there's the invention. And so it became my product called Biz Plan Builder. And I've been selling those ever since. So we added Marketing Builder, which picked up where the business plan left off. We added Employee Handbook, a safety plan with 161 safe work practices in it. Nothing like an OSHA inspection, or should I say an OSHA courtesy visit, coming to see if you've got any. It's like being pulled over by the police, thinking oh, they're coming just to look at my car and smile at me. No, they're pulling you over for a reason. Anyway, so we had a collection of sample contract templates, all of them used in real life, real world. A collection of spreadsheets. Anyway, long story short, there is over the years, we evolved into an online dashboard, which is called businesspowertools.com, where they all work together, work alike, share data, easy to use. They're already written. So you don't have to write really, you have to write something, but you're going to edit the text. So it's easier to edit than it is to write from scratch. Because if you get a blank screen, like the SBA business plan template, or something like that, what do you say? And that's really the hard part. Once you know what to say and do, then we show you exactly what to say and how to say it. And that's really the secret sauce behind Business Power Tools. And so that's how it started. That's how it grew. And at one point back in the day, we had 10 products in about 3,500 stores, doing about $13 million in sales in today's dollars with 30 people. So I bring that up because it's successful. And I've been down the road that you're on, and I've got the tools to help you get there because I've done it myself. So that's the long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's good, and it's good, and it's interesting you said that because I did see when I was looking at your website, as far as I love the concept of edit something as opposed to there's a blank screen. What am I supposed to put on there? I think that's phenomenal.
People don't know what to say. I mean, it really bridges the gap between an entrepreneur and an investor. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got business owners wanting to sell their business. Well, what do they tell someone who wants to buy this business? They need to really get the whole lay of the land. It's kind of at that point like the owner's manual, but it really starts out as a prospectus to show that potential buyer of, hey, here's what this business can do. Likewise, the buyer on the other side of that coin could say, I want to write my own plan because here's what I would do with this business. I want to run my own set of numbers to see what this thing would be worth in my hands. And it makes that sale go a lot faster and for usually a lot more money.
And I think you'll validate this too, because it's an interesting point that made me think about it is many times you talk about inventions and all of these things. A lot of the times they're good doers and they're good engineers or they're good, whatever it is.
Right.
They're not the most amazingly organized and structured business people. So you're giving them some kind of structure to drive that conversation or that at least put the plan together.
I've worked with a number of inventors, and you're exactly right. The inventor is often an engineer or just has this idea, but they don't really know how do you turn that into a business? How do you attract an investor? How do you let go of my baby? It's my baby. How do I show this to somebody? They're so afraid of losing it. And you're really not going to, but if you have a plan, that's really the thing that gives your idea some life is how does this thing fit in the world? What problem do you solve? People often ask, what do you do? The answer is not what do you do? The answer is what problem do you solve? Mm-hmm. And so in this case, the problem I help solve is how does an inventor bridge that gap to get funding to build a business around their idea at one level. And the other problem is how does a business owner convince a buyer that this business has got legs and is worth it? So there's that. And then all the way along the middle, the problem is how do you onboard people quickly and get them up to speed in your business with here's the problem we solve, here's who's got it, here's how many there are, here's what we're doing, here are the competitors, here's the management team, here's the marketplace. You're up to speed like that. And it's really worth having. And strategic planning is a matter of simply updating the plan every year or however often you do that. It's a matter of thinking, okay, what's changed? What do we need to change? What do I want to change? What's working? What's not working? And you can review that plan in the context of the entire business. So you're not making some change over here that messes up something that's happening over here. And you've got the whole thing in view, and you can engage I'd say your entire company. Maybe that's a bit much, but I was surprised. We had a shipping guy at a strategic planning meeting, And he came up with the idea, says, we could send everything out. We could next day air, second day air, ground. He goes, why don't we just send everything out second day air? And actually, logistically, it was simpler. It was less expensive. Everybody got their product pretty much next day anyway. And great idea. Shipping guy. Who knew?
No, that's interesting. And a quick question that I had two follows onto that, but just thinking about let's just call it your platform. I was looking at your website. You got those sets of tools that you said you had in the stores and things like that. That now you're fully online and
yes,
everybody has access. Okay, and do you have a team developing that for you?
Yeah, I've got a team, and it's also wonderful for the cottage industry of independent contractors and consultants who can contribute. I've got HR experts on one level. I've got spreadsheet guys. I've got finance people. Different marketing people in different places. It's become more of a virtual company than it was before, which just simplifies. I can hire the right people at the right time to do what I need done, and it just makes everything a lot easier. We get a much better product for it.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I think that's exactly where the world is moving towards. So, thinking through what you mentioned, so if there is what does an ideal client look like for you? And I mean, I know it's a person trying to start their business, but I'm assuming it's not a company, it's an individual. So maybe the follow-on question is, how do you find them?
Well, there is the individual. There's a small company. I would say anywhere from a startup to say 50 people, maybe a startup, which would be $0, all the way to probably 50 million. We've had a number of companies, larger ones. I would also say that that would be the end user. They need these employees. At some point, about 5 to 7 employees, you start to needing employee policies, just because the questions are going to ask, how do we do this? How do we do that? You want to save a lot of time, and you want to have all this information really in one central place. So you don't have different policies floating around here and different people getting different ideas from different places. It's all in one central, in our case, a dashboard. But the other one, really speaking to business, and there's all the advisors, consultants, coaches, even incubators and accelerators. You have a dashboard that you can use. You could now show this dashboard to your clients. Put your logo on it. You can private label it. You put your logo on it, and you show it to them as here's a tool set I've got that I can do all this stuff for you. So you can show them how you can put together that business plan that they need, how you can put together the employee policy manual, how you can put together the marketing plan and the spreadsheets, and you can collaborate. And the real sweet spot is doing it with them, because there's a do-it-yourself, which people can do, and they do it all the time. And then, of course, you can pay someone to do it for you. But if you're going to pay someone to do your business plan and all that for you, it's going to cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 really by the time it's all done. And you're going to want to take them with you to the investor presentation, because they're going to know how it works. So really, the Goldilocks combination is to do it with them, because now you've got, the expert can sit with you and say, okay, go through that market analysis section and call me on Tuesday and we'll go over it. And that way the entrepreneur understands the market analysis. You can use AI in there and do that as well, and grab and paste it in there and use all of our content as the prompt. But the idea really is you need to understand your business, because the investors at the end of the day are going to ask you the questions. They want to know, what's a nice person like you doing in a business like this, which I've already answered. But it's like that. They want to know, they're betting on the jockey, not the horse, and so they want to know why you're going to get back on the horse after you get thrown off a million times. So you really need to understand the business in and out. Again, understand the risks. Understand the market, the problem you solve. I go through this over and over again, but it's the same stuff. The three fundamental questions are, why your product or service now at all? Why now? And why from you? And the why from you is really the critical part, because the investors want to know you're going to get back on the horse after you've been thrown off a million times. And you will get thrown off, hopefully not a million times, but at least a few. So.
No, that's good. That's good context too. And just to round that out too is I think you mentioned earlier about networking events and things like that. Is that how you're finding people, or you have a marketing solution, people finding you, referrals? What's the strategy?
I've been a number of networking events. I find them very useful. You never know who's going to refer you or when. I think really the trick there is letting them know who you're looking for. I referred one of our clients to a business broker the other day, so I referred to him. And we want to be very mindful about who you can refer your people to. So it's not just like refer everybody to me, who can you refer to other people and be mindful of that and keep that in mind, which is often a challenge because we're so busy doing our own thing. But if you want people to refer them to you, you want to be actively referring to other people. And it's an opportunity to answer these questions. And every once in a while, you'll be on one of those where you've got 30, 40, 50 people on the screen, and you get to your 5 minutes to introduce your product. I've given my system demo a number of times for that. Now they can see how it actually works. That's kind of the trick. If you saw this thing, you get it. I can wave my hands and tell you about what it does, but when you see it actually online and how easy it is to use, because the dashboard is just like Word and Excel. It's nothing more complicated than that, and the text is already there. So there's nothing new to learn. I bring that up because one of the things I hear on these networking events is people are saying, I can't learn how to use another app. I'm going crazy. There's so many apps to learn how to use, and they all work differently. It's crazy making. Well, not with mine. Mine works just like all the ones the way you'd expect it to. But the idea to meet people, have them meet you, that really is one of the key things. They want to know who's behind this business. What are you about? And it's not just, you can't, we all, obviously I'll say it myself, I was hiding behind my business. I say hiding, here, look at my business, say I'm over behind it, and now it's like, no, I'm here. You want to know the person behind the business because you want to know where they're coming from, what they know, why they're doing this. And that's really going to go a long way to, I think, really, I have to say, proving, why your product is better and all that kind of stuff. But it's really about giving it some personality and realizing there's a human that cares behind it.
Yeah, no, you and I talked a little earlier in the preamble about the authenticity side of it too. I was telling you, there's a guy that I was talking to the other day that he just said we're in a trust recession and we just got to break this. And I think that at the end of the day, I mean, in my early career, people said people buy from people, and that hasn't changed. It's just people buy from authentic people is just a little bit better, I think.
Look at Apple, Steve Jobs, master pitch man. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
Apple probably wouldn't be what it is if he wasn't out there pitching it the way he did. And he was amazing. And then there's another one, maybe is Patagonia. One of my favorite examples, the founder of Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard, forgive me if I said his name wrong, but this guy's a rock climber. And he's out there hanging on sides of cliffs, camping out, with his gear. You think, okay, I think I'd buy gear from him because he actually trusts it with his life, not just some, poser who think, hey, I've got some really good looking gear here. I want carabiners from a guy who's actually hung there upside down with him. Not that I do rock climbing, but get the idea. So yeah,
no, I like that. I like that analogy. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's that it's better than the eat your own dog food kind of analogy. I think I'm going to use that one moving forward. On your website, I just wanted to close because you're talking about networking and things like that. On your website, there's a link for affiliates and things like that. So bringing on affiliates. What is that program and how does it all come together for you?
Well, it's my offer to the advisors who use our system to share with their clients, to work with their clients. So I have a directory. So a client could be wherever you are maybe and find you if they want somebody nearby, or find someone with your expertise. And so that way I built, so part of it's kind of the whole gestalt of what I've got for advisors, where I've got the platform you can subscribe to, and then you have your clients subscribe. So you get paid the affiliate fee on that for the client subscribing. But really the bigger money the consultant's going to make is charging the client the fee to help them actually work with them to do it. So their client might subscribe for the low fee there. And it goes starts at $27 a month up to, $97 a month for everything. And we keep it, once you get it going, you keep that subscription. If prices go up, you keep your same subscription forever, kind of like an insurance policy, if you will. But the idea is we want to be able to refer consultants out because I can't do it all. I'm busy doing this. So I want consultants who can help people with business plans and employee policies and hiring and firing and all the stuff that needs to be done. And so I will help my people find you. I want you to help your people find me, and everybody makes money in the middle doing what we do best.
Okay, that's helpful. I mean, and again, it's that trust network as well, which is super helpful. You touched on it because it was kind of the next line of the questions as far as being in business for a while and having done it, and what keeps you, if it keeps you up at night, maybe is always such a strong word, but what keeps you busy during the day, and what do you wish you could take off your plate so that you had more time to do surfing or whatever it is? Or
Well, right now, of course, it's AI because AI is all the rage. Back in the day, it would be like, what if Microsoft comes into your business? What are you going to do? That kind of thing. And so that never happened. I worried about that for the longest time, but really we're kind of under that radar. They don't deal with anything at our level like that. We use Excel, we use Word, but anyway. Um, it's different things. But I enjoy reading other people's success stories. I read what other advisors are writing. I always look for good turns of phrases about things. I didn't know that business brokers were saying, for the most part, that how many businesses are unsellable. That's kind of a bummer, because you all these people with businesses, and a lot of baby boomers these days want to sell them and go hang out on the beach and go surfing, like you suggest. And their business just isn't sellable. At least it's not sellable today, although it could be. And the other word I hear a lot is businesses are train wrecks behind the scenes, which it's odd that they use the word train wreck. I hear that a number of times. That's kind of weird, but you can imagine it's a cobbler's kid's story. The cobbler is busy making other people's shoes, but his kids don't have any because that doesn't pay the bills, right? So oftentimes we neglect our own business, but at some point, if you want investors, you got to have your business dialed in. If you want to sell it, you and they don't really want you to come along with the business. You want this business that can, really run by itself, or run in a way where the person buys it can take it over and run with it. And so you want to get all the skeletons out of the closet, meaning you don't want to have any lawsuits, which means have good agreements to begin with. So you don't get into any lawsuits. You don't have any problems with employees or any kind of employment department, whatever you call that in your state, issues, because the buyer doesn't want to have that. They want a clean bill of health on this business, and we can help you get there from here. Certainly can help you prevent it. And I think that's really the main thing, is have you prepared and for growth, and and at the same time preventing problems, because I'm all about BS prevention. So I don't know how to say that politely, but it's easy. It's easy enough to do. We've got the tools to do it. So go for it. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's important as well. And you mentioned AI. So have you, I was looking at your tools, and again, I think you've gone from the evolution of items on the shelf, let's call it a cloud solution, an online solution. And how have you adopted AI in your business, if you have yet?
Well, it's interesting. I've done some things where I've asked ChatGPT, how does Biz Plan Builder compare to, actually, what did I say? I said, tell me, give me how Biz Plan Builder, I kind of tilted it in my favor a little bit. I said, tell me how my Biz Plan Builder is better than anything ChatGPT can do. And ChatGPT came back and just basically shot itself in the foot a whole bunch of times, saying it can't do this, it can't do that. In fact, there's a link on my site where I have under the systems or tools where it says alternatives. And you click that, and you can see what ChatGPT said. And I didn't edit it; I didn't have to. Even it comes back and talks about comparing what people can, all the free stuff. There's all kinds of free templates. Well, good luck with that. You really think that people with free templates are going to put their heart, mind, body, and spirit behind a business plan if they're going to give it away? And you're going to bet the farm on it, bet your life, the next 4 or 5 years of your life, if not longer, or the money from friends, family, and investors on something that, there's that. So that's the kind of thing I asked ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT to compare Biz Plan Builder with competitors. And it was shocking. I thought, these other guys, what are these guys doing? Have they got something better than me? Not according to ChatGPT, they don't. So, and then there's another number of other companies. I thought, who are these guys? What do they do? And this is where it can be very helpful, even in your business plan, is to go into the business plan and, type in, I'm in this industry. In this city, I got a car wash. I want to start a car wash in Santa Barbara, California. Give me a competitive analysis of all the car washes within 10 miles of this zip code or 20 miles of this zip code. And it'll give that to you. So you can get that kind of information, does that kind of research. I thought, so I could go out and research my competitors' websites and go, they did this. Well, I do this and that, then write it all down. And ChatGPT does it like in 30 seconds, which is amazing. But you also have to, what we give you is we give you the context, the text to use. If you're going to plug it into ChatGPT, you need to know the questions to ask. That, I think, if you haven't done a business before, or you haven't been around long enough to have done businesses like I have for, I think I've been in business 50 years now. And so, we've talked earlier before we got on here about, trusting people or not trusting people or hiring people to do stuff. And it didn't turn out the way you hoped or thought. And so the chat GPT can go do research that you just otherwise wouldn't do, or maybe not even know how to do. And so we have a lot of content that you can use and plug that into chat, or have chat GPT use that with some other questions and prompts to go with it and say, give me the answer. And that's the kind of stuff you need to learn and understand, because an investor at some point will be having lunch with you or dinner with you or whatever, and they'll ask you a question. And, one of the questions, I was at an investor conference with, and it was surprising to me because I didn't have it in the business plan at the time. It didn't even occur to me, but here you go. Investor says, the guy up on the stage, he goes, so what happens if you get hit by a bus? What does that mean? Well, what that means is, what happens if you die? It's like, what if something happens and you're not around to do this? Or maybe you just split, whatever. But basically, if you get hit by a bus, you're done. Not a pleasant question, not even a pleasant idea. Don't even want to think about that, because I don't want to acknowledge my mortality. But hey, it requires an answer, because you're asking somebody to put money in your business probably for 5 to 7 to 10 years, and they need to know you're going to be around to make good. So, and our hero on the stage is standing there. I don't know. I thought, oh, come on, dude. You had 4 people standing next to you. You could have said, well, I got a team. First of all, the main thing is, you want to be ahead of these guys. You've got to be ahead of the investors. You've got to know the questions they're going to ask you. And so I go to these conferences. I listen to these guys. I ask them, like I asked one investor, do you actually read business plans still? Because, the internet's full of places, and there's all kinds of people that say, oh, business plans are dead. You don't need a business plan. Nobody reads them. Nobody writes them. They're a waste of time. Yeah. So I asked this investor, this guy can write checks for $1 million. And I said, kind of out of morbid curiosity, I'm thinking, do you still write business plans? Or read business plans? And he says, hell yeah, I read business plans. Maybe I said this to you already, but I want to know what you know, or I want to know what the entrepreneur knows. Does he understand the risk? Are they going to share them with me? That's the thing. Are you aware of the risks? And if you are you going to reveal them? Because you don't want the investor to call you out on a risk that you knew about but didn't mention. Now you've blown trust. You want them, and they're going to ask you questions like that because they want to see if they can trust you. That is huge, because they're, like I said before, they're more worried about losing their investment than they are about the money they're going to make on it. And once they're satisfied that they're not going to lose what they put in, okay, now we can talk about the upside. Anyway, so back to the bus equation question. He should have said, I got a team. 2, I've got key person insurance. So it'll either pay you the money back or it'll pay a headhunter to replace me. And 3, I'm thinking about it, but if you got some ideas, I'd love to hear it, because that's certainly a valid issue. But the worst thing you can do is stand there and do what my guy did. He wasn't my guy. He wasn't my customer, put it that way. But at the same time, I added that to the business plan. Like, oh my God, I better put that in there because you need to know that. But that's really how Biz Plan Builder and Business Power Tools has evolved, is I'm out listening to these people, paying attention to them and thinking, there's something we need to include in this thing. Of course, that's why it's gotten as big as it's gotten. But we've pared it down in the dashboard where you can click on sections. Every section of it is like a bite-sized piece. Maybe you're not going to use it. Don't check the box. If you're not manufacturing anything, forget that section. But just fill in the sections that make sense. And then you can have the investor look at it. It doesn't get any easier than that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And that continuity plan and all of that. And you touched on a couple of things, which is, it kind of brings the AI conversation together, which is, so many people think that AI is ChatGPT and things like that. First of all, like you said, you need to know what to ask it. The more detailed the prompt, the better it is. But at the same time, I say this, somebody's still got to check the homework, right? So see what the output is. You still have to understand it. You still have to read through it. You still have to prepare for it. You still need the human interaction. Yes, does it make the time from point A to point B significantly shorter? Sure. But at the same time, you can't just put crap out there, and because ChatGPT said it, and I mean, people have, to your point, people have proved that you can ask it questions that'll give you shitty answers, right? So yeah, I think that
investors will check. That's what due diligence is all about. I could say there are 350,000 sailboat owners in the world, probably more than that, I hope. Anyway, I've got this boat product, and there's 350. They're going to say, where did you get 350,000 from? You need to show where you got that number because they're going to look it up. They should. They will.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no. So just as we wind down, and not to take up too much of your time as well, is you've shared a ton, and I'm going to ask you, like, I'm going to try and like categorize this because you've given some of the answer, but one of the things that I'm also trying to do is share this with new entrepreneurs, whether they're young, older, or whatever it is. But you've talked about the need for a business plan and all of the tools that you provide.
Yeah.
But like maybe the top two things outside of the obvious, I need a plan, I need all of this stuff, like give words of wisdom to somebody that's about to start out.
Well, one thing I think about, you've heard of that in real estate, it's location, location, location. Yeah. What investors look at a business that they're going to say management, management, management. Like I said before, they bet on the jockeys more than the horse. And every business success book, I would say, or every business success article anybody ever listened to talk about business success, they're going to say it's persistence, persistence, persistence. And that's really key. You have to be prepared to, like I said before, get back on the horse after you've been thrown off a million times, which is why you need to have a really good why you're doing what you're doing. We had a client back in the day whose kid drowned in the pool. Tragic, sad event. You ask them, why are you in this business of making a product that prevents kids from drowning in a pool? Our kid drowned in the pool. You think they're motivated? Yeah. I mean, it's sad. I just kind of feel like I have a heart hurts right now. I'm thinking about it, but there's a reason to be in this. So solve a problem, solve your own problem. Really find a real problem. I think there's a whole generation of I'll call them kids. I'm going to call them kids, but who are like, you feel the baby boomers have ripped them off. Well, no, the baby boomers, all of us, I was one of them, I am one of them. We just saw problems like I did, solved it, And so find the problems du jour and start solving problems for people. That's really what business is all about, is you're fixing something. You're solving a problem. You're filling a need. You're helping somebody achieve a goal. And so that's what we're doing. And that's what you think about you're doing. And like I said before, the investors, if you're looking for investors, or why your product or service at all, why now, and why from you? And the why from you really is the key ingredient there.
Yeah. No, and I think that's such a noble cause, and it's also, I mean, that story is incredible because it touches as well. But people are out there, and I'm sure you've seen them. You see these ads, and it's like, work 1 hour a day and make $25 million. I'm like, whoever believes that BS should not go into business. And it's that whole authenticity thing that comes back again that says, look, you're right. I mean, you're gonna have 25 sales calls and you might not land at one, but what you will do is you got to take it as a learning experience. Learn how to present your product, learn what the questions people are going to ask, just learn from it. Falling off the horses, that you just get back up again if you truly believe in what you're doing. And I think, to me, that's good advice for anybody starting out. It's just it's definitely not going to be easy, because otherwise everybody would do it. So.
Well, that's the thing. If you're the one who does it and solves the problem, then you're the one who's going to reap the reward on it. But back to your thing about the conferences and the online meetups and stuff like that we do. One place that's where I discovered really that, oh wow, business brokers are saying you could use your product to pitch people selling their business. I was more about startups and helping people grow their businesses and raise capital along the way. And I said, wow, at the other end of the spectrum, you got people selling their businesses. I learned about that on these networking events. And so part of it is really knowing who would be or is your best prospect. So when I talk to a business owner, I tell them a different story, same product, tell them a different story about the product than I do for a startup, because they have a whole different perspective, but the product will work for both people just differently. So, but on these networking events, you find a guy talking about startups, you tell him or her, and then you got somebody selling their business, tell him or her this thing. And now different other people, what's really cool, people have used them. I've been around long enough, so people just chime in and go, yeah, I used your business plan back in 2010, and I raised $6 million. Right, one guy sold his movie theater chain for $75 million. My favorite story is the guy who got 2 Learjets for free. This would be one thing, a story I love to tell. Let's save it to last. What the heck? Anyway, here we are. So he thought he was a young jet pilot. He wanted to start a jet charter service, and he needed a Learjet, obviously. And so he was writing the business plan to convince investors to give him money to buy this jet. And that's really not a good investment, that investors like that are looking for. They're looking for something like, I want to bet on Apple Computer when, Steve Jobs first went back to it. Anyway, he got turned around. But we got to talking, and either I brought it up or he brought it up. I said, do you know somebody who's got a jet? Go to that guy, because usually if you've got a jet, what you do is you've got somebody probably managing it, because you're not flying it all the time. So you'll have somebody manage the plane, and they'll charter it out and make you some money on it, at least reduce the cost of owning it. And so he finds this guy, and with his business plan, he ended up getting 2 jets, 2 Lear 35s for zero, free. And, wow, now how much money does he need to raise? He needs some uniforms, some hats, brochures, an office, cards, the phone, he's got the jets. And that was the lesson there is, first of all, the investors are getting hit up all the time for people wanting money. But you got somebody with a jet or 2, or somebody with a warehouse space or a retail space, or they have the thing that you need. You think that you need the money to get. You could go straight to them, and maybe they'll give you the thing you need for a piece of the action, percentage of the company, whatever the deal is. And it doesn't have to be selling stock in the company. You could give them a percentage of your sales, which is we used to be called revenue royalties. It's really called revenue-based financing now. But, you give me $100,000. I'll give you 5% of my sales until you get your $100,000 back. I'll give you 3% of my sales until you get $150,000 back. And I'll give you 1% of after that for the next 10 years. I'm making that up, but that's a formula you can play with. And so that's just, I answered 2 questions you didn't ask right there, but you get free jets, and you can pay people out of revenue. And that way you don't, because usually if they invest in your company, the way for them to get paid back is you got to sell the business, because someone's got to buy it. And you give them a piece of that. If you don't want to sell it, you give them revenue, and that way you can keep running this business forever and sell it if you want. And there's a formula to pay them off. But nevertheless, there's a variety of ways to make this happen. So maybe to answer your other question about what do entrepreneurs need to do and think about is there's a variety of ways to make this happen. And so what keeps me up at night is looking at all these different ways that people do stuff, and who knew.
Well, that's a brilliant concept. I've got a great marketing idea for your next one. How to get 2 Learjets for 0 money. If I've been able to do this, I can help you do anything.
Hey,
that's a great story. I love it.
Anything, I don't know. It could be anything you want, but that's the idea. And you can imagine the guy with the Learjets, he's not getting hit up with people asking him for money all day long, I don't think, because he's not in that business. So when one person shows up with it, so he's probably not even going to be that discerning about your business plan as an investor would be, because they're looking at, venture capitalists look at probably 1,000 deals a year. I hear this a lot, 1,000 deals a year, and they fund a handful. What happens to the other 995? So.
A good question. The good question that could be answered. And so I, again, truly appreciate the time. This was very insightful. I love your enthusiasm. I love everything that we've had a conversation about today. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then you and I can just wrap up once we're done. I appreciate everything.
Do you have a thing on a link on your website to businesspowertools.com?